You know, when you open up the Bible to Exodus chapter 27, it can be really easy to just see a list of, well, ancient architectural plans. You see measurements, materials, instructions for a tent, but it is so much more than that. Let's really dive into this, because what we're actually looking at is a divine blueprint. It's God's own design for how a holy, perfect God could make a way to live, to dwell, right in the middle of his people. It's a pattern for proximity.
And right away, the tone is set. This isn't Moses' best guess, and it's definitely not a design from some committee. God himself is the architect. This one little verse establishes that every single detail we're about to explore, from the biggest curtain to the tiniest utensil, is a direct revelation from God. These aren't just random choices, they are deliberate, they are purposeful, and they were shown directly to Moses in a divine vision on that mountain.
So where does God begin this grand design? Well, he starts from the outside and works his way in. Before he even gets to the tent itself, the first thing he does is establish a boundary. He creates a courtyard, a sacred space that draws a clear line in the sand, separating the holy ground where he will dwell from the common, ordinary world of the camp. This enclosure, it's the very first step in approaching God.
And just look at the incredible precision here. God leaves nothing to chance. We're talking about a pretty big rectangle, roughly 150 feet long by about 75 feet wide. Just try to picture that space in your mind. You get 20 pillars on the long sides, 10 on the short sides, all set in these sturdy brass sockets. And connecting them all are these beautiful, brilliant white curtains of fine twined linen, held up by silver hooks. Then, right on the east side, the entrance, you would find this gorgeous, multicolored gate, a really clear and vibrant invitation into this sacred space.
And you see, none of these materials were chosen by accident. Oh no, they were packed with symbolism. That brilliant white of the linen, it spoke of the purity and the perfect righteousness of God himself, the standard you needed to meet to even enter his presence. The brass, used for the sockets holding up the entire thing, that symbolized the unshakable strength of God's foundation and his righteous judgment against sin. And the silver, used for the hooks that connected everything, is consistently linked in Scripture with redemption. You know, the price that's paid to bring God and his people back together.
Okay, so once you walked through that colorful gate and into the courtyard, the very first thing you would see, it would dominate the entire space, was the great altar of sacrifice. You absolutely could not miss it. It was the non-negotiable point of approach. It was the only way to deal with the sin that separated you from a holy God.
The way it was built is just fascinating. It all starts with this frame of shittim wood, a really durable wood from the acacia tree that was resistant to decay. Now this frame, which kind of represents our frail humanity, was then completely covered in brass, symbolizing its constant exposure to the fire of God's judgment. Those horns on the corners, they were a place of refuge and power, and the grate inside let the ashes from the sacrifices fall through. It was even designed to be portable, with poles to carry it, reminding Israel that God's provision for their sin was right there with them wherever they went.
And its size was totally intentional. 5 cubits by 5 cubits. This thing wasn't just tucked away in a corner. It was a massive 7.5-foot square block that stood right in your path. Its sheer scale was meant to communicate something absolutely crucial. The problem of sin isn't a small one. And because of that, the way we deal with it has to be central, visible, and absolute. There was simply no way to get to the tabernacle tent, to the very presence of God, without first confronting the gravity of this altar.
So, what was the whole point? It all comes down to this one crucial word, atonement. This was the place where the penalty for sin was paid through a blood sacrifice. It was the place of reconciliation, where a bridge was finally built between sinful people and a holy God. Without the altar, you couldn't approach. Without the sacrifice, there was no fellowship. It was the foundational, absolute first step in the entire system.
Okay, so the courtyard creates the sacred space. The altar provides the way to approach God through atonement. But how was this new relationship, this incredible presence of God, supposed to be remembered day in and day out? How would the people always know that God was there, right there among them?
Well, the chapter wraps up with this beautiful and really powerful instruction. It moves us from the outer court past that massive altar and into the holy place itself, just outside the veil that leads to the most holy place. And right there, God commands a light that must never, ever go out.
And the instructions, once again, are just filled with meaning. The fuel had to be pure, beaten olive oil, the very best quality, representing a pure offering to God. And its purpose was simple, yet so profound, for the lamp to burn always.
This wasn't just a light for the priest to see by, it was a perpetual symbol of God's unwavering faithfulness and his constant living presence. And the job of keeping this light burning? It fell to the priests, to Aaron and his sons, who were to tend to it from evening until morning every single day. And God makes it crystal clear, this is not a temporary rule. He calls it a statute forever. This ever-burning lamp was meant to be an enduring symbol throughout all of Israel's generations. It was a constant physical reminder of the spiritual reality that God's presence was with them, that his light had come to dwell right in their midst, and that it would never, ever be put out.
So as we look back on Exodus 27, we can see it is so much more than a dusty old blueprint. It's this beautifully intricate picture of God's desire for relationship. He defines a holy space to draw us near. He provides the one way for sinful people to approach him through his sacrifice. And then he establishes a constant burning light to remind them and to remind us that he is always there. It's just a stunning pattern that reveals, from the very beginning, the heart of a God who has always wanted just one thing: to dwell with us.